The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to the Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Welcome to Sonoma Valley, where you're going to hear the crack of the can.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like a pro.
I wish this was on video.
It was carbonated. Nobody told me. Hey, welcome everybody to the Winemakers. I'm John Myers. Full crew today. Wow. Everybody
Back
here.
in Sonoma.
Back from DTC.
We're off Fantasy Island.
And what else were you at, Sam?
I went from DTC to Eco Farm. I basically lived in Monterey for a week, which isn't
that's
not something that
not
you get
too
to complain
shabby.
about, but it's
No.
nice to be home.
No. Yeah.
I mean, the whole time you were there, you were on like the 14th.
18th, the 18th tee box of the Del Monte golf course. I only played it once.
I was going to say, how many holes
I only
did you get in?
played it once. I should have. I didn't have my clubs in my room. Otherwise,
your sticks.
I didn't have my sticks in my
As
room.
Ben said.
Yeah, well, I'm not good enough to say sticks. I really just like after hours been out there chipping. It would have been great. We were busy. What were we so busy doing?
I wonder how they frown upon that, or if they frown.
I would have probably gotten in trouble.
Yeah.
Not like I didn't try and get in trouble every other way.
Right.
The whole weekend. So it would have been just add to the list.
Yeah, I smell.
All
right.
What's going on?
What you
Bart?
got there, bud? We've got two guests today. Want to intro?
I mean, sure.
Well, they came through you.
Shaking the rust off.
Right, exactly.
As a pop-up.
How much wine did we drink in Monterey? Yeah, enough.
All of it.
All right. Well, I will then. How about that?
Go ahead.
Kent Foulker and Todd Bostock. Welcome. Kent from Cedar Ridge Winery and Distillery, Swisher, Iowa, and right next to Cedar Rapids, where I'm from. And
Wait, where are you from?
hey, yeah, think about that.
Do you make Chenin Blanc?
And Todd, how do you pronounce it? Dos
Cabezas.
Cabezas?
Yeah, two heads.
Excellent.
It's a Spanish au dutet.
Oh, really? How cool is that?
Wait a minute. And you guys predate Auditet also.
We do.
Yeah.
Instead of suing me, he actually bought wine, which is how it began.
Well, welcome, guys. What a pleasure to have you on.
So this is all the power of the pod, right? So Kent is a longtime listener. Has sent in questions.
You don't have to catch it. You can just say yes. You listen all the time. Yes. At least for the last year or two, or since you guys got good.
Did we get good? That's the question.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
We didn't have the microphones turned on, so we're still figuring it out.
So Kent, longtime listener.
Yeah.
First time at the table.
Yes. It's a dream come true.
A nightmare.
No, I just, I had some questions, and this has just been a huge, huge source of education for me listening to you guys. And I was thinking about going out to...
We apologize.
We all look at each other like, what?
My bad.
Well, but, I wanted to... I was curious about Unified Conference out here. Come from the Midwest. I was just deciding whether it was worth it. And I reached out to Bart, and he definitely said, yeah, at least if your company's paying for it, it's worth it. And honestly, it was. I just spent the last couple of days there, learned a lot, and it was just an awesome experience. And it's just continuing being able to come out here to Sonoma. So.
Yeah, Unified. I think anybody in the industry would benefit from going to it. Especially with the proliferation of suppliers and toys and vineyard stuff, and there's just so much stuff. It's grown.
And it feels like a lot of that stuff is more accessible to smaller producers and growers than it was in the sort of whatever heyday of Unified, of when it became Unified. It was all about how big can you go.
It was all about how big could you go, how efficient could you be. And so, yeah, it's been great. And there were a couple good keynote speakers. I know. I mean,
Did you catch Pink?
No. Ray Isle and Pink was out there.
I told you guys she was cool. Ray said she was hella cool.
Did we push back?
Yeah, there was a little pushback. She's a vintner. She's a vintner.
According to friend of the pod, Pam Strayer, it's the first time that an organic farmer has been a keynote speaker at Unified.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, I've been told that when it comes to celebrity wines, if there is ever a legit one to look out for, it would be hers. And I think that's valid. If they reached out to her and have her as a keynote speaker, she must be doing something right out there. So no, I think it was valid for sure.
yeah, I'm sure they weren't doing it for the
What's
clicks.
going on with me?
What
Brian's stealing wine.
The rails, we left them long ago.
And then Todd,
Yes.
you originally met Sam up at
Hospice drone through the probably casually through the years.
Was it hospice or was it A7?
Hospice drone. Yeah.
The first time that I went, I don't think I actually went to a hospice event. I just went to all the other parties.
Oh, everything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you look familiar to me.
Oh, yeah. We've been going to Hospice drone since 2004, I think was our first time.
Yeah.
And Vicky Carroll's been, and Howard have been good to us. Throughout the years. Hey,
Don't forget Aaron.
But it's how we met a lot of there's a lot of, actually I brought some serendipitous tie-ins, it all there's a lot of serendipity through Hospice drone.
Well, and so we didn't talk about where your winery is.
Oh yeah. Southern Arizona, just south of Tucson, in Sonoita, Arizona. We farm in Sonoita and in Wilcox. So at high elevation, 4,300 to 4,800 feet.
And it's a total family business.
Yeah, my wife Kelly and my parents and I. We didn't start the winery. The winery started in 1995, and I came along in 2002 and have been the winemaker since 2003. And then we bought the partners out.
But you're from Arizona originally.
Yeah, from Arizona originally. I my folks didn't drink anything growing up, so this wasn't something I thought you could do. So as I fumbled through college, I started a failing printing company. After I failed at college, and then
You fit in around here.
Yeah, and had always been interested in making wine. And one day bought a little kit, made it home, and it was not satisfying in a way, but it was satisfying in another way. So I enrolled in the UC Davis extension courses, and this was like in 2002. And then I wanted to get my hands on some grapes. Assumed I would move to California to make wine. I didn't know they made wine anywhere else. And then we got to the VHS cassette lecture on regional American wine. So I went to the store, bought a bottle of Dos Cabezas, had it at my house as the sun went down, and had this moment of it tasted as good as anything I'd ever had, but distinctive. And the thought of being a part of figuring out what a place tastes like, especially a place I loved so much, was intriguing to me. So I immediately tried to get my hands on Arizona grapes and was not able to get any. I got blown off by two guys that became my best friends. And then, so I was telling the story about these jerks that wouldn't sell me fruit. And
Think they're listening?
Yeah, well, I'll make sure they listen. Well, one of them anyway. And then I was telling my dad the story, and he was like, well, I've got an old friend that planted a vineyard in Oregon, and I think they got their first harvest this year. So I flew up to Oregon and picked this Pinot Noir and flew it back and was trying to make wine with it in my garage.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, how did you
fly it back?
I went to, what was it? Knapp's Thriftway in Dundee and bought 2 70-gallon igloos and packed them full of Pinot Noir and duct taped them shut and checked them on a plane.
Fuck yeah.
And then when I got to the Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix,
You know what? Fucking love it.
I got a call from my bags didn't come down the thing.
Yeah.
And they were out there sitting in the curb covered in ants. Anyway, I was trying to make wine from these things. And then I drove down and offered to work for the guys at Dos Cabezas, and they kind of quizzed me on, what my I don't know what my skills were. And I told them I was making this Pinot Noir from this vineyard across the street from the Erath Vineyard in Oregon. And just through serendipity, the guy, Frank DeCristofano, that was a winemaker at the time, said, I'm really good friends with Dick Erath. You should come work with us. So I started working for them the next Monday. And then eventually...
What did you do with the igloos full of grapes covered in ants?
I made wine with them, and it was terrible. And thank God nobody tried it. I actually had a friend sell them.
It all worked out.
Sell them I had a friend in the neighborhood sell them in the neighborhood, with no labels on them, just make them go away. But yeah, then it all worked out. Eventually,
In case the Arizona Board of Liquor Control is listening.
Yeah,
That was years ago.
statute of limitations.
Fiction.
Yeah.
Just intended for entertainment purposes only.
Thank you. But yeah, just a lot of serendipity and a lot of saying yes. And so eventually ERATH actually planted a vineyard in Arizona. And then we started working with each other. And this is like the Cliff Notes version, because I know it's not like a 6-hour program. Planted a vineyard, and so I called him up and said, what are you going to do with that fruit?
Might be today. There's like 6 bottles of bourbon on the table.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
There'll be an intermission. And so we started working together in 2008 for the first harvest. And then eventually ended up buying the vineyard from him when he really wanted to retire. And so that's actually all but one of the wines today come from that vineyard in Wilcox. So
Okay, so let's back up just a little bit. Where are the major grape growing areas in Arizona?
So there's 3. The oldest is Sonoita in where I live. And that's just south of Tucson, about 45 minutes. And then about an hour and a half east of Tucson towards New Mexico border is Wilcox. And that's the newest AVA. It's a second AVA, but it's also the largest growing region. And then up north near Sedona is the Verde Valley, which is probably the smallest and the newest growing region.
And just, not to only bring up the celebrity winemaker in Arizona. In relation to that, where are the Caduceus vineyards?
So
where's Maynard James making his wine?
So he makes all his wine up north, and he makes for Caduceus at his house in Jerome, and then this stuff for Merkin down the hill. Actually, now he's got the new place that's up on a hill. But all the wines made.
He's up north.
Yeah, all the wines made up north, and then he has a bunch of vineyards up north, and then back to all the serendipity and like as the world turns. When we bought the Dos Cabezas winery from the partners in 2006, he bought the vineyard with a partner. And then we started working with ERATH, and we actually share a fence. So we're actually neighbors. And he's a great guy. He's super talented, very generous to the industry. I think the wines are great.
Yeah, super giant proponent of Arizona wine.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Question for you two growers.
Yeah.
What's it like at 4,500 feet versus what's Moon Mountain? 1,500 average?
Yeah.
Like that?
500 to 20.
And we think that's high elevation.
Yeah.
So I
think it puts us
a mile high
amongst the highest vineyards in the world. Maybe there's only things, like I think in Europe, the highest is like 3,500 feet in like Manchuela area. Could be wrong.
How does it impact the grape itself,
so
the fruit?
The good things are, I think we can ripen just about anything. But really what becomes our challenges are all the things people don't associate with Arizona. So
like frost.
Yeah. Cold weather.
What's your frost window? Yeah.
It's wild, and it gets wilder every year. So we live in a cold spot. Last year we had tomatoes get frosted in June. Yeah. But typically, the second week in May is our last frost date in Sonoita. But yeah, so it means our issues are late spring frost, early fall frost, extreme cold, and then we get all our moisture during monsoon season. I'm sorry, all during ripening season
in the summer.
Yeah, and then frozen.
How does
rain.
that work out for you?
It's challenging, but I think it's what we're all here to solve the problems, right? And I think it's part of what makes it fun. So when we look at varieties to grow, knowing that we can ripen just about anything, we're looking for a team of varieties that we know we can put together to make something that tastes delicious every year. But things that bud out at different times, ripen at different times, as long as the clusters are loose, the skins are thick, and somebody somewhere has made something that tastes good from it, it becomes a candidate for us. And then we plant it and see what happens.
So how would you guys handle it if you had monsoons during harvest? Ripening. It does not fit with our model here.
I would start with the canopy and making protection over the vines, but airflow under the vines. And you've got to be super diligent with your fungal, your salt and mildew control. And it's probably a fair amount of hope and prayer. And also, what it sounds like you're doing, which is you just hedge your bets. You make sure that there's something that is at a place where it could survive whatever weather, in the vineyard. So you're always going to get something out of it.
And then I think you get creative with what you do with it. I think not everybody, I think most people go into winemaking thinking the goal is to make still table wine, right? Like red wine, white wine, still wine. But in a region that's so extreme and distinctive. That's where things like this sparkling wine we're having, Riesling can taste great there, but if we were to try to take it to ripeness for still white, there's a high chance it's going to rot most years because it's going to get rained on and it'll just rot. So we can pick it for sparkling when the acid is like screaming, and then I think it's a great grape for us for sparkling.
So it's knowing what your limitations are and planning ahead, and not trying to do what people are doing in other places.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be inspired by what people are doing in other places, but at some point you can't. If you're gonna like add to the conversation, you can't be a cover band forever. So you gotta. And I think all these wines are that. I mean, all the wines we make are clearly inspired by things people have done elsewhere. But at this point, they're. I like to believe they're a unique Arizona thing, which I guess is the point, right?
What were they doing before you bought it? What were they doing with it? Like, how many wines were they making? Was it all still wine?
It was definitely all still wine, white, red, dessert every once in a while. But the focus was on red wine. And the vineyard, the old vineyard, which Maynard now owns, is the Buhl Vineyard, is the oldest vineyard in the state. And so initially it was planted to Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay. But as they expanded, they got Rhone varieties and then Spanish varieties right as I got there. But the wines, the reason I reached out to these guys is Callaghan Vineyards. Callaghan was the winemaker at Dos Cabezas originally, and the two wineries had received a lot of attention nationally and internationally. And so my strategy was to find properties close to those two vineyards as possible and start there, because the wines have been great and they'd received attention from, Robert Parker scored a Chardonnay Callaghan made at 94 points and said, if you can't get Romanée-Conti Montrachet, get the Callaghan Chardonnay for $17. And this was back in like 94.
I probably sold some products. Sold a couple units. 1990.
Maybe, but I can still see people saying, oh, fuck that, we're not going to drink.
I can tell you a story. Yeah, it doesn't register. And that's why I love going to Hospice de Rhone, because there's an Arizona flag up there. And we always have the most popular spit bucket at the thing because there's no line for it. And I almost want to every time I want to record, because people look and they get confused and they go, Arizona. Yeah. And it's just that Arizona. And then you almost I become like Carnival Barker because you're there and you're like, you paid the price to get in. You know all these other wines. Aren't you curious why we're even here? And sometimes, and it's interesting. Generally, the most talented, secure folks are the ones that are most inclined to try. And actually, that's how we met Philippe Camby. Is he was walking by our table with Michel Gassier and the other guy. Oh, hey. And I had to, bark at them, right? Like, hey, come over here and try the wine. And then they did. And he was like, Camby was like, you should come visit. It was the Mesquite. It has Pic Blanc in it. And we did. And then that led to us. Yeah.
I don't see that bottle on the table. Where'd it go? Ryan?
Yeah. Led to us growing Vronic, because we were showing him pictures of our vineyard in Wilcox. And he said, oh, you should plant Vronic. And we came back from Shattuck to Pop and Davis had released it, and we bought all 27 sticks.
What is that?
It's from Macedonia and Montenegro. It's VRANAC or EC. And it's like the latest, it buds out later than anything, has thick skins, tons of color, plays nicely with the Rhone varieties. So I actually brought the first vintage we made.
Wait, and who said that? Philippe?
Yeah, Camby. Yeah, Philippe
really?
Camby. Yeah, because he was making it at the place in Macedonia. I forget the name all of a sudden.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, of course he was, right?
Totally.
Like,
on the cutting edge.
Yeah. Well,
Whether,
no.
Even though he was
way ahead.
Way ahead. Even though, the criticism is 16% Grenache. He was pushing all the limits and all the boundaries and wanted to make Pinot Noir with Adam Lee and Zinfandel with Justin Smith.
Yeah.
There was no limitations to what Camby was willing to try and wanting to taste. And, that's what made him so special.
Yeah. Generous, forthcoming, brilliant.
What are you aging this in?
So that is, it ages for 6 months in a mix of concrete and large, like 600 liter neutral barrels, thick staves. And then at 6 months, when we blend the sparkling to bottle,
Sparkling blend, by the way, we should just say, is 40% Grenache, 30% Riesling, and 30% Tempranillo.
It's that classic.
100% delicious.
100%
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so the Riesling can tend towards like richness, and so what we do is we blend it after 6 months on the lees from the sparkling in a 1,500 liter Foudre, and then let it hang out there for another 6 months, and then bottle it.
What's the Roussan look like before you pick it?
It's the ugliest thing. It's always the ugliest thing that we bring in.
It better be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it has the opportunity to get ugly in those temperatures.
Yeah. And so, we're trying to always find the sweet spot, like back and forth, push the ripeness, pull back. Cause it's got like cool, salty quality celery salt thing when you pick it earlier.
What are the, and I'm going to ask you this question too, Ken. You guys just like kind of a brief overview of the history of vineyards in Arizona and also like what some of these soils that you're growing in, because it's, the elevation certainly plays a role, but by getting
and what is the oldest vineyard?
The original vineyard, the original winery doesn't exist. Well, so it'd be Sonoita Vineyards was the original. What was the Dos Cabezas Vineyard, what is now the Buhl Memorial Vineyard, is the oldest vineyard, and that's what the Vineyard Maynard owns. But Sonoita Vineyards was I believe, the first winery. And the way that came about is Dr. Gordon Dutt, who started Sonoita Vineyards, was a plant pathologist, I believe, but he was tasked with surveying the Four Corners regions to find Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado to find low water use, high value crops for the region. And he focused on the most fun one, grapes for winemaking. And so he did all his, soil studies, and he decided that they did test vineyards that Sonoita was the best spot for growing grapes in that region. And that's how the industry sort of started, low water use, high value crops, especially in Wilcox where they grow alfalfa. And we're basically exporting all the water, and it's becoming a crisis because nut growers from the great state of California, alfalfa growers that ship off alfalfa to the Middle East, and then dairies from the Midwest are sucking up all the water there.
But where's the water originating?
So it's in Wilcox, it's a closed basin, so nothing flows in or out. So it's only rainfall that's collected. And so grapevines or wine is a great industry for that region because you can pick on alfalfa, you can pick on any of them, but they use a ton of water. Nobody comes to visit an alfalfa field. Nobody spends the night in a hotel. So all the value added to the water being pumped out of the ground is realized elsewhere. And then with wine in Wilcox, we're subterranean drip irrigation, so it's super efficient.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you've never heard of that?
Subterranean drip irrigation? I think I listened to them in high school.
They're like early DC punk.
Yeah. Right. The Subterranean Drips. No, that wasn't on your name. No, a good band name.
So I think that's why it emerged, and then
please describe Subterranean.
This was actually an ERAF thing because he had never irrigated anything in Oregon,
right?
And so he built this shank with because he was an engineer in his former life. Built this shank with 2 reels that he could basically inject the emitter, the drip line with the integrated emitters 2 feet down on either side of the vine, and we can pump the water right there. So it doesn't, it's so windy that it can you see water just blowing away.
So you're fracking with water.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and it's great because, animals can't chew on it. And,
and you're not, you're not losing anything to evaporation.
No.
Brilliant.
And then,
can you see it? Like if you walk in the vineyard when it's being irrigated, is water rising you can see the wet spots?
Yeah. And we're probably at the point where we should be looking at maintenance because now that is 20 years old, the oldest drip lines. But then for me, just seeing the epiphany so this winery was started like in a 1,000 square foot machine shed, and tasting the wine and then seeing where it was made, it was mind blowing. The thought of, the possibility, because it just tasted good. I thought it tasted as good as anything I'd had anywhere else. And we didn't have equipment. We didn't have a forklift. We didn't have anything.
It's a theme these days.
Yeah.
The no forklift winery startup.
I know. It's sparkling wine. Are you doing that on the property?
Yeah. So we decided we never wanted to do sparkling wine, and then we did the carbonated cans, and which was literally the easiest thing you could do. We just took the same rosé that we were making, hand-picked, foot-stepped, and carbonated it, and liked it. And then we thought we should do the opposite and do the hardest thing we could think of. So, so we started this traditional method sparkling program in 2015, and we weren't sure, what we were going to use. Since we picked Riesling because acid, and I thought we needed acid, structure, and fat. So we went with Riesling, Tempranillo, and Grenache, and then liked it, and it tasted great as still base wine. So we thought we wanted aged character, but we also wanted the uniqueness of every vintage. So we decided on the perpetual cuvee method. So this is 50% perpetual cuvee from 15 to 19, and then 50% 2020, and then 3 years in tirage and bottle, and then we'd riddle and disgorge by hand, unless we buy the gyro pallet we looked at Unified yesterday, because riddling gets old.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so we do it all in house, and I would love to outsource the riddling and disgorgement, but it's such a small project.
In Arizona.
Yeah. So it doesn't exist. So yeah, we do about 1,500 liters of this every year, and then we started doing rosé version, and we do about 1,000 liters of that. So super small. But
so not to be rude, but where does the money come from? Where seriously,
it
doesn't cost so much, first of all.
Well, no, I mean, for all of this, doing this in Arizona, you're like someone's got to pay for all this shit.
Yeah. But we're bootstrappy. My folks got into wine at some point. Actually, mom and dad took the Napa Valley wine train, and they turned the lights on, and they always wanted a family business. So I started working at the winery in 2002, became the winemaker in 2003. And then they were into it, and they said, what do you think about like planting a vineyard? And I didn't wait, for them to think about it. And we dove right in. My wife, Kelly, was a teacher. She cashed in all that teacher money. And then my parents mortgaged their house.
And what do you do for the other 10,000 vines?
I know. And are you an only child?
No. But a winery in Arizona.
They love you.
Yeah, it was.
Really love you.
It wasn't that expensive at the time, relatively speaking. But so we planted a vineyard, but there was no labor. I mean, like the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 acres in Sonoita, I pounded all the posts in myself, but I was also like early 20s. So, you could do that sort of thing. So yeah. And then we just, we don't have investors, and we just roll things back in, and we hustle. And my wife and I are the people that make the wine. And then my mom comes down and pressure washes FYBs, and Karen in our tasting room comes back during harvest, and we just, bootstrap it and then put everything back in.
You had Ian Zwink?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know her?
I know her very well.
Right, because you're neighbors.
Yeah. That's all the serendipity. Yeah. And that's through another podcast. I don't know if you know, I'm trying to give the guy a shout out, and I can't think of his name, even though I had lunch with him yesterday. Yeah. It'll come to me. Yeah, anyway.
It's been a long week.
Major fail. Can you undo the ding? Yeah. Or is there a reverse? Westover. Fritz Westover. He's got a podcast, a viticulture podcast, and he introduced us to Ann Swain.
I met him on Tuesday.
Yeah. And
Did you go to Unified?
No, but he came to the tank.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Your Tuesdays at the tank.
Yeah. Or it actually was Monday then, I guess. But it's interesting. He does,
so on brand.
Of course. He does virtual
viticulture
podcast.
Yeah. And so I met Ann through him because she's looking to do sparkling in Iowa. And so she came down when we were finishing this wine last year. And she makes really interesting wines in Iowa. And it makes you feel fortunate for your challenges in Arizona. I mean, at least, we got to make wine from grapes people know the names of. Mm-hmm. And she's talking about things like Brianna and pressing this
cool climate hybrid
with all this pectin in it, and it just sounds like a nightmare.
Press full of boogers.
Yeah, I mean, I hate pressing Viognier, and I imagine it's nothing like that.
So just a little bit more about Arizona, and because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and bypass it.
We're basically waiting to drink the bourbon at the end.
Right.
We've learned lessons.
Been staged properly.
Prudent.
So as far as direct to consumer, how much do you sell wholesale? How much do you sell direct to consumer? What is the wine trail like where you're a guy?
So it's interesting. It's changed, and I think we went into this. My vision for the winery was based on what most of California was doing, an export market. Making wine, thinking people were going to buy it and it was going to be distributed. And we used to be distributed in big markets like in Chicago and DC, Virginia. But the truth is there's no demand. There's no pull for it. So why model it after that? So, COVID was tough for us. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but we lost all our restaurant customers and all our tourists. And so we pivoted. We'd seen like what the brew pubs do. And I'd always admired what the guys in the Hurgers and like Austria do. So we decided that we would change our we thought if we're going to go out of business during COVID, let's go out like in an epic mushroom cloud of debt or something. Yeah. And so we pivoted and we decided that we would copy that brew pub model and try to sell wine by the glass to the people that live there. And then if anybody ever wants it outside the state, they can pay us FOB like, or cellar door pricing. So now we sell so much wine by the glass, by the bottle, and it's freed us up to be more creative. It's a great tie into this wine because the truth is like nobody cares about us. I always tell people in Italy, nobody's concerned about what the poor people in Southern Arizona are going to drink with the food they're eating in the summertime. So we get the opportunity being like boots on the ground to do that. So you can do things like this Syrah we're having, which is 13% alcohol. And it's great for when you want red wine in the middle of summer with like tacos.
And it was intentionally served at the temperature that you handed it to.
Yeah. So I wanted like something cold. So we were drinking a lot of Cru Beaujolais, and my wife and I wanted to make something like that, but we don't grow Gamay. And we had these 3 rows of Syrah that we were putting into rosé because it was, these small blackberries that were ripe, but it always seemed a shame. So we decided to pull them and go into this. So this is like carbonic macerated, co-fermented Syrah in Albarino. And
what's amazing is it aromatically is so Syrah.
Right.
And it's subtle, especially because it's cold, but really interesting on the palate and bright
really broad across the palate, like still there. It's great.
Yeah, and so we try to take that challenge and make wine for people. So I guess to answer your question, we've gone heavy direct to consumer, heavy. I mean, our place looks like a restaurant now, but it allows us to control our destiny. And that was the fear during COVID, is that we were not in control of our wine sales. And if anything like that were to happen again, I don't know that we could survive it. And so we went from 3 employees in the winery, we still have 6 in the vineyard, and we're trying to keep the 6 in the vineyard. You can't stop farming. To now I think we've got like 25 employees between like our kitchen crew and our.
So I saw that you're doing pizzas on the crush pad.
Yeah. So
that's your.
Yeah. So what happened was 2020 was a short harvest, and it was kind of boring because it's just boring, right? You need like things to do. So and then we're trying to think of how we're going to stay alive. So my wife and I decided that the only way we're going to stay alive is to have locals come in and eat. And so we had this pizza oven we'd bought to go to our house and learned how to make pizza real quick. I actually started the starter in the barrel room at the end of harvest. And then I made pizza.
Better to do it at the end of harvest than the beginning of harvest.
I was going to say, is there any?
Question. It's interesting. Yeah.
It was ballsy.
Yeah. I will not make dough and then go back and make wine. Right. So I learned how to make pizza real quick. And then my wife, Kelly, ran the front of the house, and we mounted this pizza oven on a truck and just started making pizza. And that lasted for about 5 months until the growing season started to come around again. And fortunately for us, some really talented folks at my favorite pizza joint in Tucson and other places got laid off and had to move back home. And so we picked them up, and now we're attracting a lot of really talented folks. And then we were able to cultivate, talented, we've got some makes cheese for us, some that raises mushrooms for us. So our thought, Kelly and I's thought during COVID was, let's try to like create the world we want to live in, and we want to live in this place, and we don't want to have to drive out to the market, and do all these market visits and wine dinners. Let's create the environment where people come to us and we can spend more time at home. We can be around our kids more. And I think it's worked really great for us, actually.
What's the coldest that it gets there?
Very cold. So
right now, the last couple of weeks has been really cold there.
Yeah,
right?
it snowed yesterday, just lightly. We were 9 degrees in the vineyard 2 weeks ago. Wow. With wind chill, we've been below 0. We quit trying to plant Grenache in Sonoita because it just kept getting wiped out by different cold snaps.
Are there people who are doing like burial cane and things like that, like we see up in Walla Walla? Or is it not
yet?
You're not worried about the freeze that hard?
Yeah, not yet. I think it's still too rare that it gets that cold, and then it just depends. Tempranillo doesn't respond well to early fall frost, but most of the other things seem to do well. But yeah, I still think there's a lot we could do with our training to mitigate some of the challenges. But nobody's burying canes just yet, or laying over trunks or whatever.
Many head trained vines. Shout out Brooke Robertson.
I mean, also the wind, as opposed to wall, where they actually get snow on the ground. When you guys get snow on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
you do. Yeah.
Yeah, it snowed.
Isn't it so funny? It's like the perceptions that we have of places, because like Arizona, I think of red dirt,
Oh yeah,
like a vortex
Right.
of red dirt.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
I just remember
Saddleback Mountain or whatever it is. Everybody
Yeah,
does
like
and
some
hikes up, down
Breaking
there,
Bad
over there.
sort of
Yeah.
situation.
the little time that I lived in Arizona when I experienced my first dust storm,
oh yeah,
and it was like literally raining dirt, and you see it come
Like a
out of the
wall.
east. Yep, and all of a sudden it's like everything just filthy, wet, and it's like mud that just left behind. Yeah.
yeah. And where we are, we don't get the dust. We actually get the precipitation. So we get the rain, and we get these major temperature swings. Like 30, 40 degrees from daytime to nighttime. And so during like the ripening window, it's super dramatic. You wake up and it's clear. It starts to warm up, starts to get humid. Just about when you think it's a little too hot and humid, the sky opens up, calm rain comes down, temperature drops down to like 60, and then it's like 360 degree lightning shows. It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Go on location next time for monsoon season.
Right.
How will thunder and lightning do with our equipment, John? Probably not that good.
I think it is probably a little cooler looking than Cedar Rapids, Iowa area. But
We're just out there.
how so? Tell me.
Trees,
Palm trees?
ocean views.
I like it. Mountain views? Yeah, totally cool.
Corn.
Hey, well,
Did you have a bad childhood, John? Are you projecting on
I feel like I'm about to get attacked.
It sounds amazing.
it's just like,
will be fine.
Iowa was so flat and, corn and soybeans and lots of pigs and I-80 from Cedar Rapids to Des Moines. That was it. And Iowa City.
That checks out. Yeah.
Those are the three things I know. That's it.
Well, close. The eastern side is definitely more hilly. There's a lot of large rolling hills out there. When you get more towards central Iowa, you're definitely getting the flatlands. That's where the huge swaths of corn are. But when you hit the eastern edge, with the Mississippi River, the Cedar River, Rock River, all those going through that neck of the woods there's a lot of bluffs. There's a lot of nice rolling hills. There's actual structure out there. You can't see miles and miles.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
beautiful.
like McGregor and the hills, right, the cliffs around
like-
the Mississippi.
One of the original Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
They had up in McGregor at Pikes Peak was named Pikes Peak because they thought that was the tallest part of the United States.
Aha. Little did they know.
Got to keep going a little further west. Is it though the like black land soils kind of?
That
The
that
right
is
glasses
It's
for
a
the
lot
right
of clay.
It's a lot of
clay. Light sand, there's a town just below us called Coralville, and that has a lot of small seashells, and a lot of fossilized shells there. But in our neck of the woods, it is heavy clay. So you get a lot of massive amount of acidity in our wines from the heavy clay. But we have slopes on our hillsides. If you tried to take an ATV down it, you're going to roll it. We learned that the hard way and try to put a mower through there.
Who went down?
Yeah, our accountant decided he wanted to go on our on a mower.
That's fantastic. I would love to say.
I think that sounds to me like that was a hit. Yeah.
Here's the keys. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
Don't tell your wife.
I think he's actually done in Arizona now. No, he went into our Edelweiss lot and he went through a few rows with the mower as you lose control going down those steep hills. So it's not all flat out there in Iowa. So.
Well, it's nice to have memories of Iowa, but I'm glad to be drinking wine from Iowa. I think it's cool that you're making wine there, man, and whiskey.
Yes. So Cedar Ridge is a winery and distillery, actually larger distillery than it is winery. We have about 10 acres of vines. If you want to,
Yeah, what came
taste this.
first?
The winery did. Winery came in around 2005. Jeff Quint and Lori Quint just got a plot of land just south of Cedar Rapids there, and it was a beautiful little ridge, obviously Cedar Ridge, and ended up putting in 10 different varieties out there, just to kind of explore and try something different. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of vineyards in our neck of the woods, and it turned out to be a really successful endeavor. And eventually, I would say probably closer to 2015 is when they really started going heavy on the distillery side, especially with our bourbon. But only lately here, our master blender, Murphy Quint, he has been pumping out some outstanding American single malts that we finish all in wine casks from around the world, and of course our estate. So it was originally only a winery with a tent, and then a tornado came through, and then the buildings went in, and it's just, now we have almost 10 buildings on site. Some warehouses housing close to 2,000 barrels of whiskey each shed. So it's a fairly large facility.
How supportive is government in your state of the wine industry?
And the same question for you. But
gosh, they like their money. We walk hand in hand with them. There's a group called the Iowa Wine Growers Association. Ann Zwink, that we were just talking about, she's on the board. I used to be on the board there too. And we do work hand in hand with the government on passing some laws. They're a little slow. A lot of native wine laws that are, a lot of wineries are distilleries. A lot of breweries now are bringing on stills. There's a lot of commingling between beverages, and to get the laws passed, it takes more lobbying than we'd like, but we have some good people out there that help that out.
Is Iowa still a state liquor store state?
I mean, yeah, we self-distribute on all of our wine. We just try to there, but
can you go buy?
It's not a liquor control. You don't have. You can go into any store,
go anywhere, gas station, grocery store.
Okay.
There are no rules really when it comes to just the public going out and purchasing any type of liquor.
Huh?
Sorry. I'm distracted by the Dos Cabezas El Norte, which is reminding me of the Becca Valley wines, like Chateau Masur.
Yeah. I mean, really, really grapey and fleshy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but great nose.
Yeah, amazing nose. Sorry. But this is how we do when we
shiny objects.
So, but to go to your question about how is Arizona with?
I think it's similar, and I think y'all in the states that became strong early probably have a much more permissive business environment than we do. I mean, I once had a legislator say to me, just because you went out and planted grapes in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean that we should change laws for you. But it does actually. And so being a low water use, high value crop that is tied in with tourism, it's a great thing for Arizona, but it has been challenging. I mean, I think, we are one of the few states that has a limit on how much wine you can produce and self-distribute. And it's 20,000 gallons, which is nothing.
Not very much.
Right.
And so we actually went to the legislature. We played our hand. We spent all our money to make a big push to eliminate the production cap. And the problem isn't just that self-distribution thing. It's attracting investment. And you need larger wineries that can come in and be successful so that you can have your tractor fixed. You can, have people come out and fix equipment, and you can, because it
build a little critical mass.
Yeah. And so there has to be that ability to grow, and you have to be able to hand over a healthy brand to a distributor. You just don't want to start up a wine brand and call somebody up and ask them to sell it for you. So you need the right to, but it's been challenging. So in the year we did this was 2020, and we made it through the House without a single no vote. It got kicked over to the Senate, and then they closed because of COVID. Yeah. Wholesalers in Arizona who are very strong and very much against us being able to do the things we need to do to survive, then knew what we were up to. And then we went into a period where we could do no fundraising. And so it is challenging. We're constantly up against having an environment that's conducive to doing what we need to do. And we have to spend a fortune on lobbying. And it's this thing where it's like swimming in a riptide, where if you want to stay where you are, you have to be constantly trying to move forward. And that's just to maintain the rights that you have. If you want to make any progress, you need a lot of help.
You keep talking about grapes as a low water crop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that impression.
Compared to alfalfa.
Okay, and almonds, yes, of course.
Whatever,
Or cotton or
they're looking at like big lettuce plantations in Arizona that are sucking up a lot of water.
Over in Yuma, but
and they're drip irrigating.
I like that.
Yeah.
Everybody drip irrigates for.
But I mean,
for wine.
underwater, underground. I've never heard of that.
But I mean, that alone means you use a lot less water than those. Do you guys have the need for irrigation?
Do you irrigate
No irrigation at all. No, we're on average, we get around 38 inches of rain every year, and then 32 inches of snow. So
38 inches of rain all year round.
Correct.
And additionally snow.
And additionally 32 more inches of snow.
Yeah.
So no, we have.
Yeah, it rains all summer in Iowa.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt when it comes to disease issues. I mean, last year, I think it rained at least once a week, all the way through the entire growing season. It wasn't like that the years before.
Two sides to that. You know?
Like I said, as long as you're on top of fungus issues, it's not a terrible issue. There's a little bit more canopy management that you need to do, but it
and ground cover management. I mean,
absolutely.
It just keeps growing.
It aggressively. Yeah, it's to the point where we got to have our accountants go mow.
So, Brian, did you get your question answered from him?
Yeah, no. And I'm wondering about your neighbors. Like, are they supportive? Do you have a lot of local support?
Yeah. And it's just, we're wrapped around with woods all around us. There's neighbors, across the street. We have a beautiful relationship. We have a full restaurant. They bring their families over. We try to keep the noise down. Our distillery runs 3 shifts. We're 24/7.
Wow.
But when it comes to any complaints or anything like that, no, they're just a part of us. They stop by and they, like the one guy that lived down the street, he's like, "Oh, I see you got that Mustang skid loader. I was thinking about getting one of those. How you like it?" So I'm like, "Oh, I'll take it for a spin." And it's just a good
Tractors,
community.
the unifying force.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have a restaurant.
We do.
I mean, and how many winery neighbors do you have? Like, is there a wine trail in?
Yeah, there's multiple wine trails throughout the state of Iowa, especially along the I-80. But in the corridor between Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, maybe a dozen. Which isn't too bad. Wow. And there's some really, really, really good wineries out there that are producing some outstanding wine using cold hardy hybrids. Mm-hmm. I wasn't originally a believer at first, but then people, proved me that they can make some outstanding whites.
I was surprised.
Just incredible.
I tried a bunch of wine from Soldier Creek last year, and I was blown away by the quality and they're interesting. And I think that's kind of the point. Like, it's why it's the most fun time to be a wine consumer, is because you can get access to wine from everywhere, and you can have interesting, distinctive stuff that deserves a place on the table and it's stuff that isn't being filled by anything else. And that's what I thought when I tasted those wines.
Yeah, there was a wine competition, Indianapolis wine competition before it closed down. The wine that took best overall wine was a La Crescent from Dubuque, Iowa.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, probably everywhere but California has probably benefited more from wine in general, like growing in popularity, right? Because a lot of times you just have
most part, we did pretty good in California.
Yeah, no. I guess what I'm saying is,
when you start from nothing,
right, and you're a farmer and you're making fruit wine, or you're making from cold hardy hybrids, if I said that right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's all this information that comes in from out of state. You have people that maybe worked in the wine business in California. They move to Arizona, they move to Iowa, back to their family, and they want to be in the business, and they come with some experience, right? Like, there's more ways to be educated. There's more people talking about it. You have, instead of being one winery in 100 miles, there are several of you. You can get together. You can converse about your problems. Try to strategize things to do. So
yeah, absolutely. We have just under 100 wineries in the state of Iowa, and it is a beautiful community. I can call up 20 different wineries right now, and there's no secrets.
And how many wineries in Arizona?
That's a great question. Over 100. I'm going to say that was with reckless confidence.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing for both states.
And California, Bart?
I have no idea. There's probably close to 200 that call Sonoma Valley their home.
5. If you count small labels, people doing crush pad work and all that. I mean, it's
licensed wineries that have brands. It's grape in our state. Grape growers and physical wineries, obviously less, but I'm pretty sure there's over 100 licensees.
The only thing I can say that one of the biggest challenges when you're starting up a winery in say Iowa or Wisconsin or Minnesota, a lot of people that are going into that are typically people that drink vinifera. Right. So they're constantly saying, "Oh, I want to make a cab." We can't do that there. Right. Yeah. You need to embrace and do honest winemaking and embrace the whites.
Well, and the world needs another Bordeaux knockoff. Like it needs a hole in the head. Right. So the point being, if you get to drink your favorite wine at home, if you're going to Iowa to try wine, do you want something that's almost as good as your favorite wine, or do you want the best Iowa wine you can get, which is going to be different? And isn't that the whole point?
Absolutely. And just
want to learn and discover something new.
Yeah.
And like say the whole state of Illinois, they are trying to support rosé movement. Like the state is insanely long, right? So they have different climates from top to bottom, but they understand that the temperature that they grow, the grapes that they can grow, honest winemaking is pump out some delicious rosés. And I would put their rosés against many regions across the world. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk about cool climate hybrids? Like where because a lot of people that are listening to the podcast probably have no idea what some of these grapes are, where they came from, how you get them.
Sure. Sure. So you can actually find cold hardy all the way down to San Diego. They are grown everywhere. But usually University of Minnesota has a great program. So a very popular grape is Marquette. You'll find that through that they created that, which has a cross of Pinot Noir. So you're actually going to get a lot of Pinot Noir esque to it. You'll get that black cherry, and it has kind of a little bit of earthy funk to it too, which is really nice. But you can get them from Tom Plocker is an outstanding person who does a lot of breeding.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I thought that was a grape. Tom Plocker. I'm like, that's an interesting.
It's like Elmer Swenson, but yet you can also get Swenson vines. So, we get a lot of the nursery that we go through is AA vineyards. And that's where I can get my Brianna or Edelweiss or Lacrosse, and Frontenac, you name it. Petit Pearl and I don't have a great relationship. I am the minority. Okay. So, with cold hardy grapes, the vines themselves, right, they can withstand insane temperatures because the Midwest is not conducive for human life. And it's also the same way with grapevines. So like a lot of our vines can go to -25, -37 degrees, right? But that same protein that allows them to be cold hardy is also what's going to bond with tannin and drop it completely out of solution. So you're not going to find bold structure in a lot of our grapes, but Petit Pearl and some of the other ones now that are being created, like Verona and Crimson Pearl, actually do hold on to a little bit of tannin. I'm not a fan of the flavor profile of it, but that's just me. I know that I'm the minority of it, but Petit Pearl is definitely gaining a lot of strength throughout the U.S. right now.
Where did these grapes originate? How, you know what I'm saying? Because we know what we know here in California. Sure. So like these were not indigenous to your state, right? These are things.
That's correct. They were, like I said, they were created through indigenous grapes.
And who's doing that creation?
Like University of Minnesota is a huge one. You'll have some in Penn State. You'll have some, I think Michigan State might also be working with that. And then, gosh, I wish I could remember the one in New York. But yeah, they are hybridized. They are created there
from other grapes that
Correct.
they figure out what can take tolerance of extreme cold.
Yep.
And then try and cross it with something flavorful or
right. Just like the Marquette, it was, I can't remember the number of the name of the American rootstock that they have, but then they also spliced it with Pinot Noir.
Right.
And then so you get the Pinot Noir flavor, but you get the cold hardiness of that American. I just can't remember the number.
And how crazy is it? How many of those sort of hybrid grapes are out there that you have access to?
Gosh, dozens and dozens. The book on how many different grapes you can get is just, if you, like I said, I think AA Vineyard is a great place where you can look on that. But you have Frontenac Gris, Frontenac Blanc, Frontenac. Like there's just many variations of them that's just depending on your zone, depending on how cold hardy you want, depending on what type of wine you're going to make with it. They have so many different types of hybrids you can pick from.
But it's an investment to pick something out of a catalog and plant it and then wait till you can actually make wine from it. So how do you know?
On top of paying royalty fees for them too.
Oh, you pay royalty fees for those, like perpetually?
Every time you buy it, you pay the one-time royalty fee. Yeah. Right. So like the University of Minnesota wants a royalty fee for their Marquette.
I have a quick question. Do you have like champions in your, because like these great food and wine cultures grow up together, right? And so without like restaurant partners and champions of these things that, that are excited and introduce them to people, like do you have those in Iowa, or even you're close to Illinois, like Chicago? Are they? My geography is right there, right?
Yep.
Are there other champions in the city? Like I know in Michigan, there's Stella, Trattoria Stella does a great job of highlighting like stuff in Michigan. Is there stuff? Do you have champions in your industry?
Not really.
No. Yeah, I think that. I mean, I think that is one of the big challenges. Is, you look at folks and they want to copy the wine lists in the big markets, in these small markets, and instead of trying to stand out doing the local, you'll go into where we are, a restaurant, and everything is local. They'll tell you where the meat came from, all the beer is local, where the greens came from, and then the wine list looks like a wine list in San Francisco.
Right. There's maybe two. One for sure, called the Wine House in Pella, Iowa, and they are strictly a shop that only focuses on Iowa wines. Mm-hmm. And they actually recently just did a single barrel with us. They'll buy whole barrels and have their own label. But other than that, no, maybe one or two places. That's it. Yeah.
Is Arizona vinifera?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I think there's some folks way north that are experimenting with hybrids, but the vast majority is vinifera.
Right.
And it's, most of it are things you've heard of, but there's a lot of things. I mean, if you imagine folks were bringing in grape varieties for Arizona, it was for California, Washington, Oregon, New York.
Right.
And we're just now starting to see stuff show up. I mean, Callaghan and I are always looking at the FPS catalog to see what's new and interesting, because you really never know until you stick it in the ground or graft it over how it's going to respond. And see, I think you just have to do that. Now, when I got into this, I thought we would we would make it to the end. But now I feel like if we can at least see the promised land, like we got to try to speed up and do all this stuff on a fast cycle and try all the varieties. Yeah. So, like Lagrein was something to me that seemed like it would be a no brainer, but I think there's only one selection of Lagrein and we grafted it over and it was a disaster for us. And so then we just, after 3 years, it's gone and now it's something else.
Yeah. That's what I'm kind of asking about you, is the experimentation level of, do you find something that makes a wine that you're happy with and so you kind of stick with it. But how often are you saying, hey, let's get one of these new hybrids and see if we can create something else?
Pretty rare. Rare. So, we obviously, like I mentioned before, we have a beautiful communication highway between all of us wineries, especially on the eastern side there. So I can make a phone call to, say, Lubin Wineries and say, how's your Itasca? I don't have an Itasca. And we do tastings.
Or you can go buy a bottle.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you got to think too, these Midwest hybrids, the most expensive bottle you're going to find typically is $25 bottle.
And that's, I think, the other challenge is convincing. Well, I've talking to Soldier Creek Ann. Yep. You have locals that want one thing, and it sounds like sweeter wines, fruit wines, but then you have to please all the people, right? And so when you look at the list of wines, the wineries I've looked at, they're making dozens of different wines and different styles from different varieties with different techniques. Right. And then the bottle price that they feel like they can get is not necessarily conducive to that kind of experimentation or distribution, right? Because if you're only making $6 on a bottle or $10 on a bottle,
trying to do that premium, premiumization in the middle of Iowa is kind of non-existent. Yeah, like we just don't have a pool of people large enough or access to the wines to want to be able to pay that, and survive. Mm-hmm. So some of our core wines, I mean, they're like $12 on the store shelves at the grocery store.
It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing.
Right. Kent, Iowa sometimes gets a bad rap because of industrial factory farming.
Yes, they do.
And soil quality and non-regenerative and what they use in terms of pesticides, herbicides. Mm-hmm. What are you doing in terms of regenerative farming in Iowa, and what do you see as the trends?
Well, for us, we stopped spraying herbicides. We stopped. I can't say we stop everything. We still need to spray. One, I don't have the education yet. You don't know what you don't know sometimes. But we have Japanese beetles that will just skeletonize our entire vineyard in 48 hours if you do not spray for them. Oh. They come in around June, and then you see one or two if you don't act immediately. If that's a Friday that you happen to notice one or two, you come back on Monday and half your vineyard, there's no more green, right? They're just sticks. So there are some things that I just don't know how to combat them yet. So I do have to spray. But otherwise, it's all about canopy management.
Sounds biblical.
It is. It's sketchy. It's unfortunate because I would love to go complete organic. My wife is plant-based. She's works for the university in the health department. She very health focused, and I love that, and I also want that to be in our wines. I've heard so many horror stories, about glyphosates and everything in between, and just destruction of the soils. So last year we really bulked up our compost piles because we're a restaurant. I can use all the food scraps from that. Because we're a distillery, we have a lot of spent grain. I can use a lot of that as well. So I can build up and start creating a nice compost process. But that's really, at this point. That we're really trying to focus on maintaining that soil. We don't till, we don't irrigate. There's no herbicides going down. It's just trying to leave it alone as much as possible.
Is vigor a problem? Like with all that, I mean, that's probably one of your biggest challenges.
Absolutely.
Just vigor. Because things just want to grow constantly.
Insanely. Yeah. So VSP, if you're trying to go VSP out there, it's so challenging because it grows up. And then if you're not maintaining or tying or keeping it back, it's just going to keep throwing laterals. It's just going to be a giant bush, So a lot of it is all high wire because you just have less work, obviously, but eventually it's going to touch the ground. So you do have to at least hedge periodically. Otherwise it catches, the mower, it might catch the tractor, it might catch, the gator driving through. It can get long and sprawl because it's so aggressive out there, especially, like I said, with our rain. It's just high vigor.
Yeah. What kind of tons per acre are you getting off? Like what's an average?
On average, 3 to 4.
Okay.
It's not, we obviously, we crop thin. Yeah. So we try not to let it get too aggressive out there.
So just before we get on another thing. So what about you? What is the biggest challenge in the growing? And then what do you get per acre?
I'll start with the easy one. So in Wilcox, 3 to just over 3 tons per acre for us. I mean, obviously you could get more, but that's where we end up. And then in Sonoita, if you're doing a good job, I think you're lucky if you get 2 tons per acre. And then I think some of the same challenges, that you're looking to apply some of the techniques you read about, especially, cutting edge stuff to a completely different spot. And so you have to translate that to your place, and then it's trial and error. And without a bunch of buy-in, we've just now gotten a extension viticulturist from Washington, which is great, right? It's but a lot of it's trial and error. And the thing about like private business, when they fail, they don't necessarily share all the things they learned with the community before they split. So it's slow. So, but for us, challenges are really just moisture during ripening, rain during ripening, and humidity. And then, how do you shut things down and stop them?
Right. Because it's so hot, it just wants to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking like, what eats the Japanese beetle? Like bring more of that in, but then what are you going to import some invasive species to come in and eat the beetles? And then
and that's why
like they did in Hawaii,
here.
Right?
Because they brought them in because the aphids on our soybeans.
So
that's how that went out of proportion. So when around us on the property, obviously you have your conventional farming. So you have your corn years and you have your soybean years. And if it's a soybean year, I know that I'm going to get bombed with Japanese beetles.
Right.
Corn, not so much. Usually when it's a corn year, I have insane humidity and I got fungus issues. So I play whatever the surrounding crops are.
Right.
Interesting.
So the bottle that I brought in, which it's the letter, it's supposed to be 5, a Roman numeral 5, but we call it V. That is our Madeira inspired wine. So it's 85% white port, 15% red. And it is we use a 5-barrel Solera system, so hence the Roman numeral 5. We leave those barrels outside in the sun to bake, just to kind of really capitalize on that. But we need to pay attention to the corn. And the reason being is if I were to take those barrels and put them out in the sun in the middle of, early June, to really when the weather starts to warm up and think that I'm going to bake it that way, those barrels are going to dry out and they're going to split and I'm going to lose all my product. So, the story, knee high by the 4th of July, right? Yeah. So, once the corn gets so high, they start wicking, when the temperature goes up.
Wait, is that a word that we should know? Wicking.
Yeah. So the corn per acre on a really hot July, an acre of corn can put 3,000 to 4,000 gallons of water a day into the atmosphere. So the humidity goes insane. Towards July through August. So that is when
it's converting.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I was miserable in the summer.
Again, I said it's not conducive for human life. So, so at that point, that's when I know that it's safe that I can start putting my barrels outside to get direct sun to cook the wine,
right?
Matterize the wine, without the barrels from splitting and drying out and leaking everywhere. I use the humidity from the corn to keep those barrels hydrated on the outside for 3 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's wild.
I mean, for anyone who works at a small winery and you don't have heating and cooling maybe, or you don't have a, glycol system, you learn how to use the sun, to your advantage, how to, warm up the fermentations. And,
we move red bins outside so that they can get hot.
Right.
And we take advantage.
If it's going to be cool at night and the temperatures are high, you leave them outside, and that's awesome. Yeah, the humidity comes from the corn. I would have never thought about that.
Me either.
Right? That's crazy.
The more you know.
Right? Yeah.
But it's a holistic approach, right? It's an observation. You saw something, and then you sort of have to act upon the
So that's interesting. So the dessert wine we brought to is the similar situation. I always call ours a Sordelera because it's like a half-assed Solera.
A what?
Sordelera. It's like, barrels that were outside for this too. To take advantage of the climate because it's unique. It's super hot, super cold. We can evaporate a ton of wine. It's shocking how long it takes for it to get messed up tasting.
Yeah, and we with our hybrids we have a lot of acidity, so to find balance with the residual sugar. For us it just makes sense. Yeah, and of course we're a distillery, so we make our own high proof grape spirits. Yeah, that's great to fortify it. So it's all in house.
And I think that's the exciting thing about regional American wines is the innovation and I think if people think about terroirs, it's like it's the place where the fruit grows, but I think it's the people, the place, and then the predicament that people are in, and then the ingenuity that they do to come up with the product that makes it super interesting, delicious. And I think that's why stuff like that is cool and special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you have any use for must? Are you using it in some way in the liquor production?
No. When it comes to the spirit side of things, it's more about barrel finishing. Right. But when it comes to pomace, we've experimented a piquette once using Marquette grapes and using the pomace. Yeah.
It didn't work out.
It was tasty. Yeah. I didn't factor in the dissolved CO2 within the liquid before I put it in to have it finish fermentation inside the bottle. So it got a little too fizzy. So
we have a term for that here.
Yeah.
We call it splody.
Yeah. Yeah. I had plenty of that. Sold well.
You sell eye goggles with every bottle.
It's just bar only, and turns into a cocktail. So, you can use it, for wedding toasts, greeting drinks, things along those lines. Definitely not something that would go on the shelf.
Right.
Yeah. And Brian, I see you got the tumblers out. So, aren't we going to taste some
Brown Booze John?
Oh yeah.
No. That's not for me. No, I can't do that stuff.
Well, I'm excited.
Jasmine's had a day. And we're doing, so I'm assuming indigenous local corn?
All of our bourbon. Yeah, it actually comes from the family farm. So we bring that in.
That's awesome.
But our single malt, of course, is barley, so that we don't bring in. We don't really grow that well in Iowa. That's usually more colder
Neighboring
climate. So you're going to see that
states.
in Canada, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Okay.
So our single malt is definitely brought in from a place up in Wisconsin, but the corn itself, though, is local.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then barrels, you're using all of your wine barrels that have been used several times, or you're...
So by law, you have to use new American oak in our bourbon.
Okay.
And it needs to be minimum of 2 years. And there's a bunch of rules in order for you to call it bourbon.
Right.
So we bring in American oak barrels from Independent Stave Company in Missouri. And then after we use the barrels for 2 years with our bourbon, we empty our bourbon 2 to 3 years, depending on the product. And then we'll refill it with our fresh make single malt. So that there's not that heavy toast, heavy barrel character. It leaves it nice and light. And then we'll age our single malts for a minimum of 3 years, just in used bourbon casks. And then at that point, it will get transferred into a finishing cask, whether it's some of our Marquette barrels, St. Croix barrels. Right now, we have a La Crosse, which is a white wine in barrels, and French oak. And then the single malt will transfer into those and get seasoned.
And then, I'm sorry, do you sell them, like, are you highlighting that feature in all of them, or they just, once in a while they get done in these and once in a while they get done in?
So we have just the regular quintessential, which is it's a Solera, in-house Solera that we just constantly are building. So whether it's peated malt and finishing casks to create a consistent flavor. So that's our standard quintessential single malt. Okay. But then, like what I brought here, which is our wine club, that is our quintessential blend, and then we put it in finishing casks. So this one I think was Tokai, Pinot Noir, and ex Amontillado casks. So we'll finish it. Like I said, we have hundreds of finishing casks in one of our sheds, unclimate controlled. And we
just leave them filled with water?
No. I mean, they're full of single malt.
Okay. I thought you meant empty barrels.
Do you store them on head, or do you store them on barrel racks?
Barrel racks.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think we have, like I said, we have the largest supply of finishing casks for American single malt or for whiskey in general in the United States right now. Just hundreds and hundreds of barrels. So if you want orange wine, you want Amontillado, PX, you want a Barolo barrel, you want an Oregon Pinot Noir, we have American single malt.
And
finished
these come
in those
from
casks.
where?
From the actual places. Yep.
Right.
So that, like this Madeira, or the Madeira inspired the V dessert wine there, that was from a trip that the owner took to Portugal and then Madeira in search for finishing casks. We didn't want to go through a broker. He wanted to go direct. And he came back with a book on Madeira and said, make this. And that's how that started on his journeys on trying to find finishing casks for our whiskey.
Okay, so I'll ask you too, where is the money coming from for this entire project?
It's all the distilleries. Distillery does really well. We are the number one sold bourbon in the state of Iowa. We have a lot of great contracting partners. Have you ever heard of the band Slipknot?
Yeah.
We partner with Slipknot. So they have their own whiskey with us. We go on tour with them and are constantly, they have red wine finished, Slipknot's whiskey.
Yeah.
There's Cold Zero, there's Beverly High Rye. We have a lot of contracts. We have a brand new one that's coming out right now that we just contracted with, and that's 50 barrels a month that we're making for them.
Wow.
As far as like labeling bourbon, does Kentucky, right? Kentucky own the name bourbon, and you guys have to call it Iowa bourbon?
No. Bourbon is just an American term.
It is. Okay.
Now, if you have a Kentucky straight bourbon, then yes, that has to be made there. But
is that right?
yeah.
Okay.
But if it's the word bourbon, the word bourbon is American corn whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah.
American corn whiskey. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And are you able to sell the wine and the bourbon side by side? Because I know we have a local distiller here, and that's the one thing you can't purchase in his store. You have to go to an actual store to buy it.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. We cannot have it side by side. In Iowa, whatever whiskey you produce, it goes to the state. Right. And then you buy it back from the state after their 50% markup. Yeah. And then
pardon me.
Yep, so,
can you go ahead and detail that?
Yeah. So we literally physically shipped it to the state in Des Moines, and then had to have it shipped back to us in order for us to even sell it on our store shelves. Now we have it, a little bit more automated where we are not shipping back and forth, and we have a warehouse built on site that we can keep it there. But yes, if we wanted to say have a value added pack of say this American single malt that was finished in a V cask, I can't have that in a pack unless I build it myself at the winery, because technically the whiskey has to go to the state and then I buy it back, but the wine does not. The wine can just be self-distributed and stay. So yeah, and so like if I want to sell it on the shelf, that's different than if I want to make it as behind the bar for cocktails. So at that point, then I need to buy my whiskey from say a liquor store in Cedar Rapids that then will deliver that whiskey to me for me to be able to make a cocktail out of it.
Mm-hmm. That all makes perfect sense to me.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. It's like, why? Can't they just tax
Money.
you on it? Oh, well, yeah. But I mean, why the shipping?
Because
and
Prohibition Spirits, they have it's called the Hooker House line, because the term hooker is from Sonoma.
Yes, of course.
General Hooker.
General Hooker.
It's not the word hooker. Come on.
Yeah. No, I know. But so they have their bourbon line, and I can't buy it from their Prohibition Spirits pop-up place they have on Vine Alley. I have to go to Sonoma Market.
Right. So what's interesting to me is that here, I mean, I think this is what you get in states suggest earlier about what are the challenges, like the legal challenges, is you have folks investing in these industries that are great small businesses for the regions, but don't have the lobbying power that like the wholesale interests have. And also you're busy making your product. So it's not, and you're probably not close to where the laws are made in your state too, which is challenging. Right. And then, how do you ever get an environment that makes sense, that's conducive to you when you're not down there speaking the language? But, and then you get these things that don't make sense. So in our state, for example, a brewery can get a license for a beer and wine bar, so they can sell other people's product, which has to come from a wholesaler. You'd think it would be great business for them. A distillery in our state can get a bar license and sell other people's booze. A winery in our state cannot own a beer and wine bar license, which would only make us customers of the distributors. But any success we have, they see as a challenge to their power.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly what we heard, and have heard for the past few years about Save the Grapes, is that, what happens in other states and what happens in other industries can ruin the wine business, right? Free the grapes. Thank you. It can mess up with the laws, precedents set in other states or other industries within alcohol can change it.
And I think you have two lawsuits going on in New York and California right now over, limits. And so those are going to be fought out in the courts. And then I think what we're going to see is wholesalers going to the weaker states and trying to legislate to stop that. And then, so in a state like ours where we don't have the power or the money to fight back, that we're probably going to have to go fight that out in the legislature so it doesn't end up in the court and they can get their way. And then, it's all interconnected. And where we are, we compete on the shelves every day with all y'all from everywhere. And if the product doesn't compete, like, it doesn't need protectionism. We want to see it open up, because more responsible wine consumption, like a culture of responsible consumption, is great for the industry as a whole. And I think it has to be free and wide open for that. Competition's good. It makes everybody better. Yeah. I want to compete with all y'all from everywhere.
Right. Exactly. Wow.
Wow. Well, I just can't believe what they put you through in terms of hoops and things like that. I mean, I've worked with beer distributors, having worked with Budweiser extensively, and those guys control tight. It's a big deal. And it's a big money deal, obviously. And that's where the rules come from, to protect that money.
Yeah, go fight cartels. Leave us alone. We just want to get drunk, drink some good shit, right? It's kind of stupid.
It makes no sense.
And I've said this, when we talk about Free the Grapes, but this younger people growing up, when they don't understand this whole system where they have money, they see something that's for sale online, they don't understand why. Okay, I just want to buy that and have it sent to my house. Like there's a disconnect of.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you can't.
Well, and we live in the future. We live in the time of like the internet and FedEx,
right.
And wine's a product. If you're selling a bottle for $30, you can ship it to somebody halfway around the country and make a profit. And when you don't need that, when you need those customers, you need access to them. And and I don't know of any proof of harm from. That anything more harmful than what happens at the local liquor store on Friday nights with kids getting access to alcohol. No kid is planning 2 weeks ahead to have a bottle of Cabernet delivered for that special.
Friday night. But they are standing behind the liquor store when a guy rolls up and said, "Hey, will you buy me a bottle?"
Yeah.
There's not a lot of Vance Wilders out there. But Erin Brockovich said something the other day. She said, we are poised to be the Jetsons, but the Flintstones are still hanging around.
Oh yeah. I mean, if the industry like Blockbuster would still be around, if the wholesalers were lobbying in that industry,
right.
Netflix would have never happened.
Right.
Oh, God, Iowa, when I was a kid, it was a state liquor store. You had to go to this, concrete block building. It was very Russia, I mean, you had to go in. And Bart, we would stand around outside the liquor stores and find somebody to buy us a quart of Miller or something like that. It was very cool.
Yeah, I'm used to the way it is in Iowa and Wisconsin. And when I visit my sister down in Nashville, that's the way it was. Like when I first started visiting her a handful of years ago, you couldn't buy wine in a grocery store. I'm like, that's insane. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. And then they would have like the little stores in the backside of gas stations if you wanted to buy anything harder than beer and wine. So I'm like, what? Like,
you know what we need? We need to get whoever's running Spotify or Pandora into the alcohol sector. Yeah. Release the beast. All right, what else are you guys trying now? Once we get into spirits, that's when the show starts to take a dive. Because
I'm just loving the aromatics on this single malt whiskey, and I find that's really when I open bourbon whiskey like that, I just get caught up in it. I just like to.
I wish I could explain to you the feeling that I get. Like the blender who made that, Murphy Quint, he used to be in sales. And I remember when he left sales and got into production, and we shared an office at that time, and watching him grow from someone that never blended, didn't know how to distill, going on to now running all of production, and then has his own blending floor and is just picking and choosing and doing all these different barrels and putting something together, and then mentally just destroying himself because he's just like, that's never good enough, or I got to do that. And still continuously pumping out these absolutely beautiful single malts. Yeah. We had one that's called Portside, and then the other one, he's just kind of cheeky. Everybody, calls out it's a cigar blend, and he didn't. So he calls it the Untitled Cigar Blend because he didn't really want to call it a cigar blend. And, he adds a little humor to it, but the meticulous thought and watching his palate grow and watching him how to pick and choose. Like, you can't grab like a Pinot Noir cask and expect that Pinot Noir cask to taste like Pinot Noir. I mean, there will be essences of it, but it's so faint. It's its own completely different flavor profile after a single malt's been aging in it for years. Yeah. So the same thing, like if you get a nice sherry cask, like for me, a lot of times sherry cask tastes like tequila. So then we bought tequila casks. That doesn't taste like tequila when you finish a single malt. So basically, he's starting with brand new ingredients and then putting that to memory and putting that together. Like I came to Cedar Ridge. Actually, when I first started there, I was their sous chef. I came from the culinary world. The gentleman that's running the brewery part of the distillery, who makes the whiskey, he also left the kitchen to come there. Like all of us have a culinary background.
It's kind of a cool background for doing that,
absolutely.
though, right? Yeah.
And to watch, like I said, to watch him grow and create American single malts like that, it's awesome.
So a bourbon aged in a Pinot barrel as opposed to a bourbon aged in a Cabernet barrel cask. I mean, different?
Absolutely.
And same, right? I mean, it's the leftover Pinot or the leftover Cab that's in the grain.
That's inside the grain itself. Yeah. Usually the barrel's completely emptied out. And then it's just that interaction, of the spirit going in and out of the barrel and taking part of that essence. But
because people will always ask, and if you put Cabernet into a Cabernet barrel, can you put, Pinot in it next, and does it influence it?
1,000% it does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember Glenmorangie was the first one I think that I had that had the portwood finish or the sherry casks.
Sauterne.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can. You totally.
I just don't have a lot of experience with those products.
Yeah, and because I think
late night.
Work in restaurants part.
Exactly.
Do you get upset when people put a cube of ice?
Absolutely.
In? No.
Gosh, drink it.
Because it's sort of. Do you guys even recommend that sometimes that it kind of blooms a little bit?
So for me, I do. I put one single ice cube whenever I'm having a drink. And the reason why is, one, of course, you drink it. You're drinking it full strength right off the bat. Right. And then and ice melts way faster in spirits than if it does in other products, right? So as you're drinking it, it's opening up. So every sip that you take is a completely different product.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Like you get your money's worth. You're not drinking the same thing and eventually it becomes forgettable by the time you get to the end, potentially. You get a new product every sip. That's exciting to me. So I'm someone who, like, even with wine, there's no such thing as bad wine. There's flawed wine, right? We know that there's flawed wine, but there's no such thing as bad wine. If you don't like it, it's not for you. Right. So the same thing for whiskey. If you want to put ice in it, put ice in it. If that's how you want to drink it and you enjoy it that way, please do. I'm not the guy that's going to sit there and say, you're doing it wrong. I'm a snob. No, please drink it the way you want to drink it. Enjoy it.
Are you applying like new toasts to the barrels when you're getting them, or are you just using them as is?
Like the finishing casks?
Yeah.
Just as is.
As
is. Yeah. We don't refinish the cask in any way whatsoever. No.
Part of the problem, I think, Jasmine, because there was a company that was taking barrels and then shaving the barrels and then retoasting them, but they could never get in between the staves, and that caramelizes and burns those elements. And so it never really kind of took off. And I would imagine it would do the same thing with bourbon or with cask.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of like actual scotches, they're usually much lighter. You're not going to see as much depth of color like you'll see in this single malt, which is just from straight. The second I empty a barrel, that whiskey's going in it within the same hour. So there's no drying time whatsoever.
Yeah, you need to try that one, Jasmine.
Yeah, it's reminding me of the Dos Limones. It's the Syrah with when you do the Syrah and Albarino, is it co-fermented or you're blending?
No, so we started with Viognier with this, and then Albarino's at a better spot when we're picking the Syrah. So we switch, and I think they're related. It's also more on brand, right? Albarino, it just makes sense. So they're going together, and it's carbonic, so it goes into a 550 gallon trans store, and they hang out together. And then we'll pour some of the fermentation from like the mezcal or the pink in the bottom, just so there's something evolving CO2. So they spend their whole lives together. And then it goes into 300. We got these cool 320 liter cigar shaped barrels from Stockinger, and it goes into those for 6 months.
So I've seen those, but like, how do they just sit on the floor?
They fit fantastically in 60 gallon racks. In regular barrel racks.
They're just longer.
They're just longer. So
you can't do normal rows.
We don't do any normal rows at our place, so we don't do anything normal. It's funny. One year we ran out of barrels, and I needed someone to pinch. We ordered some 300s. They showed up, and they were cigar shaped, and I didn't know what that was. And it turns out I love them because you get more lease contact, but nobody wants to make them. And so we were working with Stockinger, and they I think it's something like, it's basically 500 liter staves and then 60 gallon heads, and it ends up at 320 liters, but we don't work in liters. So I don't care that it's some odd liter shape or volume. And so I love them for whites and for things that do Grizzlies.
Those unique shaped barrels are great if you own your own facility. You roll into a custom crush place and say, yeah, I've got all this stuff. They're going to go, yeah, we're kind of full. Actually, we can't help you out.
Take your amphoras elsewhere with your Chenin Blanc, Bart.
Yeah. That's not where I was going, Brian, but thanks.
Just got personal.
Well, cool. Can people order single malts or bourbon and have it shipped to their house?
Yes. Yeah. You can go on our website and you can order them. And we will ship.
As long as someone over 21 is there to sign for it.
Does that website have a name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys both start shouting out how to
totally
where to start with Cedar Ridge, where to find it online, where to find it in socials, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you can. I think it's Cedar Ridge Distillery on Instagram and Facebook. I think the website you might have pulled up. It was cedarridge.com or cedarridgewhiskey.com. There's a wine side and there's a whiskey side, and they both have different names, but it all translates to the same place.
CedarRidgeDistillery.com.
Cedar Ridge Distillery. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
All right.
And we're doscabezas.com. I think everywhere. So DOSCABEZAS.com, .Instagram, .Facebook.
The original Audoutet.
Yeah. What's that? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Are you guys members of the Rhone Rangers?
No, not of the Rhone Rangers.
Okay.
We haven't ever done that.
I don't care if you are or not. Yeah. I just thought that maybe that was where we met at some point. Was that one of the events or something?
Yeah.
Was it Hospice?
It's probably Hospice.
Hospice.
Yeah. Or Top. You remember the Tempranillo Advocates Producers?
No.
Yeah. No. Okay. Then no, it was definitely not there.
Okay.
Yeah, it had to be Hospice Drone. I mean, it's been a huge part of what we do over the years.
Yeah. Were you guys in Walla Walla in April?
Yeah.
How'd you like it?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was like a breath. It was like fresh. And I think, it was so great, had to be so great for the community, for the wine community. I just think there was a lot of excitement and it was fun. And I think that the folks that put on that event, doing it in a remote location, did a fantastic job. Although I think Todd and Carrie Alexander probably had a lot to do with making a home for them. Yeah. But I think it's one of the greatest wine events that exist because it is, it's fun. And I think wine can be, it can seem from the outside to be pretentious or like not exclusionary, but the whole point is pleasure. And that event it makes that clear, like that it's a good time. And I love it. But yeah, doscabezas.com, buy our album.
Thank you guys for coming. Glad you guys were here.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, we're going to let Jasmine do the shout outs.
So we have a pop-up on Valentine's Day. We have a couple limited seatings left, one at 5:00, one at 8:00 with Tasting House. Yeah, with Chef Fiorella from Alakai. She's doing an amazing, how many courses is it, Brian? It's like 5 courses.
6 courses.
6 courses. And Brian's doing the wine pairings for them.
And if you're listening to this show, is it the...
Oh.
Has it
already happened?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Oh, well, Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
A little dead air there.
You might have missed it.
Or it was a lot of
You might
fun.
have missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our guests, do you guys have any events coming up? Any wine release things? Any celebrations in both your places?
Oh, gosh.
That people could plan their vacations on?
Every single Friday night we have live music. We have a huge event center on the side of the winery. So every Friday night we have live music. On Sundays we have brunch and usually live music with brunch. We're constantly, we're at a huge event hall. So there's always something going on every single week.
Nice.
And pizza's on the crush pad. Is that?
Yeah, it is now daily. We have a really talented crew that has gravitated to where we are, and we want to keep them fed. So we decided to open every day and a little later on the weekends. So every day we're opening bottles and serving food to the people. And I think that's our event. It's a daily thing.
Great.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful spot. There's a reason Arizona carved out this tiny appendix of a county in the south. You get off the 10 after Tucson and the hills start to roll and it opens up. I mean, it's where they filmed Oklahoma because it looked more like Oklahoma than it's more beautiful. It's a beautiful part of the state. Yeah. And it's worth seeking out.
Awesome. All right. Tuesdays at the Tank are continuing. This week I had some, Ian and Jasmine came down. Mr. James Joyner was there, of course, with, Marielle.
Nobody
Marielle
can pronounce her name.
Well, I doubt she's listening, but she can, James maybe can straighten that out for us. And so I'm looking forward to keeping that going. There's a group of wineries, and I don't think the list has been published, but Spring Sips, sponsored by the Sonoma Valley Vintners and the Chamber of Commerce, $15 tasting fee at a number of wineries here in the Valley to help promote people coming up and drinking, tasting.
And Moon Mountain District tasting finally solidified at an undisclosed location.
But it exists.
But it does exist.
And it's close by.
And it's close to our tasting house. It may be across the street. We're not sure. It might be at the old post office.
Right, at the post office?
Hey, you never know. There's a lot of space.
Yeah. Somewhere south and east of here.
Bart?
I didn't say.
We don't know. We don't know what to say. No, we have no idea.
Wow.
It's very mysterious.
I guess I'm not a member, so I guess I can make fun of it. And you guys have to be a little more sensitive. We want to have an event. We want to get people really excited about it.
It's a secret.
But it's a secret.
It makes it cooler that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We'll tell you on the day of where to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like those white dinners. Remember the white dinners?
Yeah. Pop-ups. Yeah.
Yeah. You just buy the tickets and then you get a text or a phone call the day of and they tell you, okay, this is where to go.
Yeah.
Fun.
Very popular around the world.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to all of our friends that listen. We'll take a picture of this table because this is a
quite the table.
Yeah. Pretty much maxed out.
That, yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
It was great. Like, what a treat. Y'all are the best.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone that put together the DTC Symposium. Jasmine, thank you. Barbara Gorder, thank you. Brian, thank you. Not me. But yeah, it was fun. We got to hang out with a lot of cool people and meet some people that we had never met before. And we'll see you again next year at the DTC Symposium. Right, Jasmine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully in Monterey. Because that was great.
At a disclosed location.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. I'll say one last thing. Drink more wine from Arizona and Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
Drink more wine.
Yes.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
See you next week. Bye.